Welcome back to the panel discussion, Women of Washington, Cybersecurity and Government, sponsored by Booz Allen Hamilton on Federal News Radio 1500 and federalnewsradio.com. My guests today are Marti Eckert, Chief Information Security Officer for the Social Security Administration, Betsy Kulik, Deputy Program Manager for the CDM program at the Department of Homeland Security, and Marcy Nagel, Principal at Booz Allen Hamilton. I'm your moderator, Gigi Schumm. So we're going to shift topics again, Marti. We're going to talk about innovation. One of the challenges that I think everybody has, but maybe particularly in the federal government, is innovation. And one of the particular problems or particular challenges is the fact that the government, and Social Security I think is the poster child for this, has so many legacy systems. You talked about being around for 80 years and having to maintain some of those systems, legacy mainframe systems that have been around for maybe almost that whole time. And if you look at, maybe not 80 years, if you look at the...
yeah, I don't want anyone to think the systems are 80
quite that old. If you look at the statistics, though, they show that upwards of 80% of the government's IT budget goes to maintaining legacy systems. So how is it that you guys can try to innovate while more than 3/4 of your budget is going towards legacy systems?
You're correct, Gigi. That's a challenge. I think it's a challenge for a lot of organizations. A lot of organizations that were early adopters of IT have this issue, not just in the federal government, but we are, just as many folks are, moving towards an IT modernization, taking advantage of agile development methods, as well as cloud-based platforms. I think that from a security perspective, what we have to do is start baking security into this new agile life cycle, right? And we can do that with some of the new tools that we have in place. So one of the things that we need to do is more automation in the development process. So for example, we can automate our vulnerability testing to fit into the agile life cycle. And so developers can automatically see what the vulnerabilities are in the code as they are writing that and getting ready to deployment. So it's not that at the very end, after you've spent months writing code, that, oh, here come the security folks, and we're now going to tell you whether or not you have any vulnerabilities and whether or not you can release your code, but rather baking that into the cycle. And that will help us to innovate and release software more quickly and have security baked into that. So I think a lot of automation in the life cycle and for security tools specifically is going to help with that IT modernization.
Absolutely. You know, they always say that you should bake security in, but with agile development, if you've got an agile sprint every couple of weeks or month or whatever, then you're checking for vulnerabilities every time, not on this huge code set that's taken years to develop.
Exactly.
So.
And also automation in terms of what CDM brings too for ongoing authorization. So you also aren't waiting to the end to do your security assessment. And saying, oh, wait, I have these 300 controls to assess on you before you can release, right? But if we can get to ongoing authorization, then as we deploy, we know those controls are in place, and they inherit those controls.
Now, you also talked about kind of the challenge or the balance of when does it make more sense to try to secure a legacy mainframe system that didn't have security baked into it versus just modernize that system and build a new one. How do you guys make those decisions?
We do. You have to do both, right? So it is. We do risk-based approaches, obviously, but if those older platforms are your high-value systems, you are going to have to put the security controls in and around those systems as well. Luckily for us, we have been at this for quite a while. So while the program's 80 years and some of our software may be a couple decades, the security program is also several decades old. So we have been building security into those processes as well. But now we have to figure out different ways to build security into newer and more innovative and faster processes.
So bigger, better, faster, CDM, that's what it was designed to do, right, Betsy?
That's what we were trying to do. We worked really hard to get the tools and sensors out. The original plan was to do one phase a year. That proved not possible for a variety of reasons. Despite that, we managed within 2 years to get most of the phase 1 tools out. The program was innovative in a number of ways, one of which was combining requirements and trying to get that enterprise approach both for agencies and across the federal government. There are other innovative things that we've been doing, including for Section 508 compliance. It was, of course, part of the BPA's tools had to meet the 508 requirements that are federally mandated. For the most part, that means that manufacturers submit VPATs showing how much they've tested and what they think of, whether they're 508 compliant or the level of 508 compliance. But because we're a federal program procuring tools, we decided we needed to be better than that. Plus, we have a really strong 508 office at DHS. And so we decided to have 2 of our people become trusted 508 testers, so we can actually verify the VPAT submissions that manufacturers provide. And in addition to that, DHS offered the trusted tester training to manufacturers. So for example, the Archer platform, which is our dashboard, they actually have got 2 or 3 of their engineers that have gone through the trusted tester training so that, like security, they can bake 508 further into the process. We're particularly proud that we've been working on that, varying degrees of success. Not all of our tools are 508 compliant, but we're taking the Archer one really seriously, and to their credit, so is Archer. The other thing that we've done is supply chain risk management. That's been an aspect of the BPA from the beginning to varying levels, because the federal government isn't there yet. You're not mandated to have a pristine supply chain. They're trying to get everybody to be more sensitive to it. We started off with ensuring that the manufacturers and the VPA holders who are proposing submitted a supply chain risk management plan, and in some cases reported on foreign ownership controlling interests, so we could at least get some intelligence from them about possible compromises. For our next set of task orders for Defend and for the approved product list, the manufacturers have to submit or respond to a supply chain risk management questionnaire. We're not requiring that they have a plan, but at least we're asking whether they've got one, and then there's a long list of things. If you do, does it have this, this, this? It's not an evaluation factor that bounces you out if you don't have one, because we cannot do that within the federal regulations, but at least it's beginning to exert some measure of recognition on the part of the manufacturers that this is something we're taking really seriously.
You know, I think supply chain is one of those interesting topics that is so baked into cybersecurity, but often I find that people just sort of take a one-dimensional approach to it. You mentioned foreign ownership, right? They'll look at maybe where some software is developed, and leave it at that without taking a deeper look as to sort of how it's developed. Oh,
that's absolutely true. And even when we did the foreign ownership controlling interest, we recognized that was just one small piece. So we were very excited about the next step that we've taken for the cyber products and the cyber SIN that pushes it just a little bit further. Again, probably for very good reasons. There's all sorts of acquisition reasons that you can't mandate these things, at least not for a system that's not a national security system. The intelligence community has different rules and regulations, but we're not there yet. So that's why sometimes innovation is hard, because there are very well-considered structures set up to make sure that the federal government on the civilian side procures things in the right manner. So it's incremental. It doesn't happen as fast as we want it. And frankly, if we're going to succeed in cyber, we're going to have to keep working against these kinds of problems and come up with out-of-the-box solutions to them, still maintaining the federal protections that we need to do.
Marti, you've, I'm sure, had the opportunity working with many different civilian agencies to view where some of them have been able to be innovative and do new and different things. Do you have some examples of innovation that have particularly struck you?
Yes, I do, Gigi. It's interesting. I was just speaking with one of the agency CDM POCs last week, and we were talking about the advancement that particular agency was able to make by leveraging the CDM investments to automate FISMA boundary containerization. And those that have been around CNA for a while understand how difficult it is to maintain those asset to FISMA boundary associations. And through the existing leveraging and optimizing minimizing the existing investments, they've been able to automate those boundaries, and now through their CDM dashboard, they can see each asset within each boundary and allowing and enabling better risk decisions and more informed risk decisions about that boundary. Now, I think we are on the brink of a lot of innovations with the investments that DHS is making with CDM. After we've laid that foundational phase one groundwork, if you will, we're ready to take it to the next level and operationalize the tool sets. You know, with Force Scout, for example, as a hardware asset management tool, it has the ability to enforce comply to connect. So you can't even get on the network unless you meet a certain baseline requirement. And then additionally with Splunk and the capabilities that it has, and coupled with the fully integrated solution, you can do some pretty tremendous innovations and automations just with the tool set that we have today. And through the future phases with automation and orchestration of your security processes, I know that very soon the agencies will have an ability to, for example, automate some of the incident response capabilities. And like I mentioned earlier, minimizing the time to detect, respond, remediate, and even automate some of the reporting, which we all know can be cumbersome. And ultimately, one of the results is, as we are looking at a workforce, a cyber workforce shortage, if you will, automating some of these more cumbersome manual processes allows the workforce to be redirected to those activities that are much more critical and have make a bigger impact on the security organization. So I see innovation. We are laying the groundwork now, and we're about to take those investments to that next level through some of the automation capabilities of security processes.
So, you know, hearing you talk about that really makes me wonder about the amount of information sharing, because, you know, you have great things that are going on at Social Security, great things that you're working on at other agencies, being able to automate different parts. How much of this information gets shared among the government and then with government and private sector?
Can I just
Sure.
add that just last week we were able to, through CDM, host a webinar that 7 agencies participated in, and we shared the automation of the FSMA boundary containers across all of the agencies so that they can see the real use and value and start realizing the art of the CDM possible, if you will, with these capabilities, because it's not about just dropping these tools and leaving. We've got to really show them the usability of it, or else it's another tool in their toolbox that collects dust. So I'm really excited about showing that usability across, and hosting these webinars through DHS is one way that we can show the real usability of the investments.
We've done a number of things for the CDM program to foster that kind of communication, starting off with the fact that agencies, as I keep saying, were lumped into groups. So automatically, Marti's groups Bravo and Delta already share a common solution, and there were common governance discussions going on. We also have the customer advisory forum that we started a couple months ago that representatives from each agency come and we listen to them. The point of the CAF is not to tell them anything, it's for us to hear what their concerns are and to try to set up other working groups to kind of cross-share that information. But again, CDM is allowing people to speak with the same terminology and have a little bit better of a common operational picture. I don't know what Marti might want to add to
No,
that.
I was going to say I think DHS has done a great job. As they've matured their program, they've also matured the communications and the sharing between the different groups and the agencies. I think that's true.
So ladies, we have about a minute left, and I just want to give each of you a chance to just say if there was one thing. I'll start and say that I feel much better about the state of cybersecurity in our government and in particular our civilian agencies, with all the good work that's being done with CDM and throughout the agencies. But I'll give each of you a chance to just say a couple of words about if there was sort of one thing that you would want people to know. Maybe people includes Congress, or maybe people includes the White House, about cyber and the good fight that you guys are fighting every day. What would that be? Marti, I'll start with you.
I think it's difficult for people to understand that, especially when you hear about the breaches, how much work goes into every cybersecurity program, and just the breadth and expanse of security programs. And there will always be a threat actor. It only takes one person to click on one email that could result eventually in a very bad event somewhere. So there is I would like to say there is a lot of good work. I think that's what I would like to get across. There's a lot of good work, despite what you hear about the breaches, et cetera. There is a lot of work, and there is a lot to every cybersecurity program. I don't think folks understand that either. We talked about the multiple disciplines that are in place across cybersecurity, and it is difficult as a layperson if you just hear about that breach and say, oh, why didn't they protect that, to understand all of the complexity that goes into a successful cybersecurity program.
I guess what I would like to close with is the fact that I've been impressed by the depth of talent that we have come across, the pockets of excellence that are there, and where the pockets are a little less deep, the very strong commitment to improve them. I mean, we've met with a great deal of support for the program. And I think, as Marti pointed out, now that we've got the tools out there and the dashboard, I think the next year is going to be really, I hope, as exciting for them as it has been for us as we try to bring the operational people together with the security people to automate so people can work smarter and not harder. And that will solve a number of problems.
And Marci, we'll end with you.
Gosh, I really think that if we all just lean in on cybersecurity initiatives and realize the value that it can bring as a mission enabler to help prevent some of the breaches, to help prevent any service disruption capability disruptions. I feel if we all lean into cybersecurity, the impact that it can have is tremendous, and I'm very excited about what the next 2, 5, 6 years hold with the direction that the civilian agencies are taking with their cybersecurity programs.
I'd like to thank today's guests, Marti Eckert, Chief Information Security Officer for the Social Security Administration, Betsy Kulik, Department Program Manager for the CDM program at the Department of Homeland Security, and Marci Nagel, Principal at Booz Allen Hamilton. I'm your moderator, Gigi Schumm, and you're listening to Federal News Radio 1500 AM. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsradio.com and search Women of Washington.
On behalf of Booz Allen, thank you for joining us. A link to the archive session will be sent to you shortly. This concludes our discussion. Thank you.